Let's take a review of your MT9 affirmation. When you have a transformation of a parabola, we're going to usually follow the equation y equals a times x minus h, the quantity squared plus k. A is going to be your dilation. That is, if the absolute value of A is greater than 1, that tells you you're going to stretch your parabola. You're going to make it thinner. If the absolute value of A is less than 1, you're going to compress your parabola. You're going to make it wider. Now, both of those have to do with the absolute value. Because if A is less than 0, you're going to flip it over the x-axis. If we take a look at the value of h, h is the horizontal translation. Notice it's x minus h, so it's always going to be kind of backwards. If I say x minus 5, you're going to translate it 5 units to the right. If I have x plus 5, you're going to translate it to the left. And then finally, the value of k, that's your vertical translation. You're going to move your parabola up and down. Now, if we take a look at this, you had letter A correct. If you take x minus 5, you move it down 5. I don't know why you moved it over 8. K, or h, is 4 here. So we're going to translate that parabola 4 units to the right. And that's all you had to do. If we take a look at this problem here, you want to simplify u plus 5 squared. U plus 5 squared is not 0. It's not u minus 5. It's u plus 5 times u plus 5. So let's do that one first. So we have u plus 5 squared. That's the same thing as u plus 5 times u plus 5. Now we'll distribute that. We'll distribute the u to the parentheses. We get u squared plus 5u. Now let's distribute the 5. We have to double distribute this because there's 2 of them. So we'll distribute the 5 and we'll get positive 5u plus 25, which simplifies to u squared plus 10u plus 25. So what we should have here is 2u squared plus 12u plus 10 equals u squared plus 10u plus 25. I didn't see that when you were doing this. Now we want to move everything to the right side. You can't combine. One thing I want you to know, you can't combine a squared term and a linear term. They're not the same. Since it's a quadratic, you want to, from chapter 8, you want to make one side equal to 0. I always like to move the smaller squared term. So we're going to subtract u squared from both sides. Well, when you subtract u squared from both sides, you get u squared. Then we'll subtract 10u from both sides. So we get positive 2u. Finally, we'll subtract 25 from both sides. And we get minus 15. Now, can we factor that like we did in chapter 8? I want you to find 2 numbers that multiply to negative 15, but are 2 apart. Well, that would be 5 and negative 3, wouldn't it? because 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. So instead of writing u squared plus 2u minus 15, we can write u plus 5 times u minus 3. That equals 0. So now u plus 5 equals 0, or u minus 3 equals 0. Well, what do you have to add to 5 to get 0? Well, u would be negative 5. Or, what do you have to add 3? Or what do you have to subtract 3? That would be positive 3. When you type this into Alex, you're going to go negative 5 comma 3 is what you're going to say. That's what you would do for that problem. Now in this problem, you did it right, but follow the directions. I want you to plot 5 points. You only plotted 3. I want you to plot the vertex in 2 points on the left and 2 points on the right. You plotted the vertex in 1 point on the left and 1 point on the right. You would have done another point, would have got this problem right. But you got to follow directions. Now let's take a look at this one. I don't know what you did there. I do like, we add 4 to both sides. That's right. So we have 2u squared plus 9u plus 4 equals 0. Now we're going to do what we did in chapter 8. We're going to factor that left side. I'm going to say 2 times 4, well that's 8. What two numbers multiply to 8 and add to 9? Well, that's pretty basic, 8 and 1. So we're going to, instead of writing 9u, we're going to write 8u and 1u. We're going to say 2u squared plus 8u plus 1u plus 4 equals 0. Now let's factor the first two, just like we did in chapter 8. 2u goes into both of them, so you get u plus 4. Look at the next pair. U plus 4, what goes into both of them? Well, nothing, but remember 1 goes into everything. Notice the parentheses are the same, so we're going to factor that parentheses out. So we're going to get u plus 4 for our first parenthesis. Our second parenthesis is what's left over after you factor out u plus 4, and that'll be 2u plus 1 equals 0. So now we're going to say u plus 4 equals 0, or 2u plus 1 equals 0. In the first case, what do you have to add to 4 to get 0? Well, that would be negative 4. U equals negative 4. In the second case, subtract 1 from both sides, and we're going to get 2u equals negative 1. Divide both sides by 2. U equals negative 1/2. And there's your answer. And once again, when you type this in Alex, you'll go negative 4 comma negative 1/2. This question is just backwards. I told you the answer. I want you to write the function or the equation that will give me that answer. So let's do this. Let's let x equal to negative 6 or x equals negative 2. I want to make it equal to 0, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides. And this one I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I get x plus 6 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. Now we're going to use the zero product property. They both equal 0. So that means if I multiply them together, I get x plus 6 times x plus 2 equals 0. At this point, let's multiply them out. So we get x squared plus 2x. Distribute the 6. So we go plus 6x plus 12 equals 0. So I can say x squared plus 8x plus 12 equals 0. Replace 0 with f of x. So your function that would have these zeros would be x squared plus 8x plus 12. And that's what you should type in. Okay, we want to graph the parabola again. Once again, you didn't do enough points. You found the vertex. I want 2 points to the left and 2 points to the right, and then plot them. You only plotted 2 points. You didn't even click on the parabola. You got to get 5 points in there. Okay, on this question, when I find the zeros of the quadratic function, we make y 0, and we solve for x. Just like we've done before. I look at this. Can I factor this? Can I find two numbers that multiply to positive 20, but they add to negative 12? I know they're both negative. So 10 and 2. So x minus 10 times x minus 2 equals 0. So x minus 10 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. So add 10 to both sides. X equals 10. Or what do you subtract from 2 to make 0? Well, that would be 2. So when you type that in, you go x equals 10, comma 2. Okay, you got them backwards here on this particular question. H is 1. Actually, h is negative 1, isn't it? Because I would write that as x minus a negative 1 squared plus 4. So you have to go to the right one, and then we're going to go up 4. I said right. I meant left one. You have to go to the left one, and you go up 4. And then you draw your parabola. And you would have had that. Okay, on this one, what's the vertex? Looks like you started off right. Negative b over 2a. So you got negative 12 over 2 times 2. Negative 12 over 4 is negative 3. Well, that's right. Your vertex of the function 1 is negative 3. Now let's find x. So now you go, oh, here's your mistake. No, it's not. You just didn't show your work. I take that back. Because now you find f of negative 3, which is right. Negative 3 squared is 9 times 2 is 18. 12 times negative 3 is negative 36 plus 25. And you got, why'd you put 0 there? It's negative 3. I think that's where the mistake is. So now if we take 18 minus 36, well, that's negative 18 plus 25 is negative 7. Now you put 0, 7. I don't know why you did that. It was negative 3 and negative 7. Then you would have had your correct answer. Okay, we want to solve this equation by graphing. But we have to graph it. So let's start here by first finding your vertex, kind of like we did in the last question. So x equals negative b over 2a. In this case, b is 14, so we get negative 14 over 2 times 1. So you get negative 14 over 2, x equals negative 7. Now let's find the value of the function at negative 7. So we have negative 7 squared plus 14 times negative 7 plus 45. Well, negative 7 squared is positive 49. Minus, what's 14 times negative 7? Let's use our calculator for that. If we take 14 times negative 7, we get negative 98. Plus 45. I think we'll just use a calculator. So 49 minus 98 plus 45 gives us negative 4. So our vertex is at negative 7 and negative 4. So now let's make our table. We have an XY table. I think before I forget, I'm going to graph -7 and -4. So we know -7, -4 is going to be your vertex. So I'm going to put a couple numbers to the left and a couple numbers to the right. So I'll go -8 and -9, and I'll go -6 and -5. Let's start here by finding the value when x is -6. So I have -6 squared plus 14 times -6 plus 45. Well, -6 squared is positive 36. 14 times -6. Should know that. Whoops. It's -84. So -84 plus 45. So we're going to go 36 minus 84 plus 45. We get -3. So I'm at -6. I'm going to be at -3. Well, I'm at -4. I'm going to be at oh, I didn't graph that right, did I? Sorry about that. Let's try that again. So -7, -4 is what I want to be at. Then -6, I'm at -3. And since it's symmetric, -8 is also going to be at -3. I don't have to calculate that. I already know what it is. Let's do -5. So I'm going to say -5 squared plus 14 times -5 plus 45. -5 squared is positive 25. 14 times 5, well, that's going to be a negative, isn't it? 5 times 4 is 20, so I get 70 plus 45. Well, 25 plus 45 is 70, so I get 0. So in other words, I'm at -5, I'm at 0. I'm at -9, I'm at 0. And then, what are your zeros? Well, your zeros are where they cross the x-axis. So x equals -5 or -9. But you have to graph this one because that's what it tells you to do. Okay, let's graph this problem. The nice thing, this is in vertex form, so we already know the vertex is at -4 and 1. So I'm going to go to the left 4 and up 1. When I make my XY table then, I'll put -4 and 1 in the middle of my table. Put a couple numbers to the left and right. And let's find when x is -3 then. So I'll go -3 plus 4 squared plus 1. Well, -3 plus 4, that's 1 squared plus 1. I get 1 plus 1, which is 2. So when you're at -3, we're going to be up at 2. When we're at -5, it's symmetric. We should be up at 2. Finally, let's do when x is -2. So I'll have -2 plus 4 squared plus 1. -2 plus 4 is 2 squared plus 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. So -2, I'm going to be up at 5. And -6 would be up at 5. And then draw your parabola. That's all you had to do for that question. On this particular question, looks like you set it up right. We have -b. Oh, look at that. B is already negative. you have to have something in there. So the product you did wrong, it should be the opposite of negative 520, which changes your sign, which changes your answer, divided by 2 times 1. So it should have been positive 520 divided by 2, which is 260. Then we're going to find C of 260, because we're not asking for the minimum number of machines made. We're going to find the minimum cost. So it should be, now you just have it a little backwards. So we have 260 squared minus 520 times 260 plus 72,857. I think we'll use a calculator for this. So we're going to say 260 squared, and then minus 520 times 260, and then we have plus 72,857. And the minimum cost is going to be 5,257. Just a little mistake on that negative sign there. You forgot to answer part B here. Or part 1, I should say. That is, if you look at graph B, is that leading coefficient positive or negative? Well, hopefully you're going to say it's negative because it's pointing down. You got part B right, but part C, the greatest value, doesn't look like you answered part C. The greatest value is going to be the one that is the stretched most up. So it's either going to be A or D. Well, which one's thinner? D is. Make sure you answer all the questions being asked of you. Okay, the last one. Very similar to what we've done before. I don't know if this is the last one or not, but it feels like it should be. Our vertex, same as before. It's in vertex form, so it's negative 5 and positive 1. So when I make my XY table, I know negative 5 goes right smack in the middle, and that'll be positive 1. Then I'll pick a couple numbers to the left and a couple numbers to the right. Let's start by finding when x is negative 4. Let me write down the problem before I forget. So it's negative 2 times x plus 5 squared and then we're going to say plus 1. We're going to start with x being negative 4. So I'm going to say negative 2 times negative 4 plus 5 squared plus 1. Well, negative 4 plus 5 is 1. We square that. You get 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So when x is negative 4, we're going to be at negative 1. And when x is negative 6, we're going to be at negative 1 because we know it's symmetric. So let's plot these. So negative 5, I'm up 1. Negative 4, I'm down 1. Then let's do negative 3. So say negative 2 times negative 3 plus 5 squared plus 1. Well, negative 3 plus 5 is 2. You square that, you get 4. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. So both of these, since it's symmetric, should be at negative 7. and then draw your parabola.